Good evening, welcome to Four Lads Rangers Midweek Live. Still getting over the weekend, Kenny. It rumbles on. How are you this evening? We're just waiting on Chris. Chris has been visited by his mum. His mum's popped in, so he needs 5 minutes before he'll be ready. So, Kenny, just you and I for the moment. How are we?
I'm not bad, mate. I had a wee emergency in my next door neighbours just this afternoon, and I've literally been in my house for about the past 3.5 hours. I've just left about 5 minutes ago. Otherwise, you'd have been on your own, Neil. So yeah, not bad. Nice day off, right enough. Apart from that,
Yeah, just me and my very sore, dodgy eye. That would have been fun. Can barely see. Just by myself, that would have been lovely. I think Chris is just about to join us. Good evening, Chris. How are we?
All right. Surprised to see you, Kenny.
did you read the message? Did you?
Did you get rid of them in time?
I was just saying to Stevie there. Literally, I was just after 7:20 they left, so they're back in their own house, but they had a real flood. So yeah,
Jesus,
a lot of damage actually.
Chris, the biggest question is, what did you get from McDonald's?
Big Mac meal, mate.
Standard.
I'm a bit of a weirdo because when I get a drink from McDonald's, I don't like the paper straw. Hate it. So I need to take the lid off it and drink it through the cup. The paper straw.
That doesn't make you weird, Chris. That makes it normal. Paper straws are not normal.
Gives me the bulk.
Yeah. Okay, so how are we feeling from the weekend? There's a few days past. Chris, you were with me on the gantry. How are you feeling about it all?
Still quite angry. Take away the events of the fans, I suppose we will talk about that at some point. I mean, I'd rather not, but it is a talking point. But just in terms of the result itself and the performance, but I don't want to say we're getting a lot of praise for the performance, but the performance has almost been kind of like, oh, that was actually okay. I don't kind of watch the highlights back. We never really troubled the Celtic goalkeeper. It was very toothless. Yeah, we had a lot of the ball. We had it would appear putting Celtic under the cosh, but that was designed to happen. That's what Celtic wanted. They wanted us to have the ball. They wanted to defend because they didn't really have that outlet. Yeah, they had Maeda, but it was kind of up there himself with no real support. And it was just toothless. It was insipid. I said that at the weekend. We don't have any cutting edge. We don't have any real finisher up front. I know Chermiti loves these games, but I think he was pretty much anonymous. Wasn't without effort, by the way. So yeah, I'm still pretty angry. It was just such an opportunity these last 2 weeks to kill their season, and it looks like our season's the one that's in real jeopardy of death, if you will. So it's not subsided in any way. My feelings. I'm still pretty pissed off.
Kenny, you've had a few days to digest everything. You most likely would have watched it again, knowing you. Is there anything changed for you?
No, not at all. Actually, I just kind of bored of saying the same thing, mate. I'm just tired of watching the same old movie on repeat. It's just what we've come to. I wouldn't say expect. I don't think that's overly fair, but you come to accept it, and that's the issue for me. That you look back on the game, you look at it. We were powder puff up front. We didn't do anything up front. We've had one real chance, Chermiti. It's not the easiest chance, but he's put it past the post. But apart from that, there's nothing really there that you could look at and say, do you know what? We really did carve them open. We just didn't. And I tend to agree with Chris that I think with them having 4 games in 10 days, I think they realised they were literally on their knees. They were dead on their feet. and they found a way to get a result. And that's what disappoints me more about this than anything else. I am sick to the back teeth of feeling that, and I don't necessarily say this in respect to the players or the manager or anything like that, but you just get that feeling that they want to win trophies more than us. There's something about it that kind of just rankles with me now, Stevie, that on the day we weren't good enough to break them down. We were more than capable of doing that if we had a little bit of guile and a little bit of creativity or ingenuity, but we didn't have any of that. So, or very little of it, put it that way. I'm not saying that's maybe harsh saying that we didn't have any of it. That's kind of where I see it all now, Stevie, that it's almost a case of, yeah, we've got 9 games to go and nobody's going to give up on this title because we're still in this, right? But I don't think there's any great belief amongst the majority of the support that we're going to get over the line in the league, because when it comes to the crunch, maybe we kind of don't tend to turn up very well, very often. That's where I am.
So I suppose the biggest question is that the manager and the players who we spoke to on Sunday said that we have to be perfect now and made a promise to each other that they're going to go on a run with 9 games to go in this campaign. So I suppose the biggest question, boys, is, Chris, can we go on a run? Do you feel like we can go on a run? And how do you feel about these games coming up?
But what does the evidence suggest? It's unlikely, but it's not impossible. But on this whole 9 cup finals, and we've made a promise to each other and stuff like that. That the captain and the manager have said this, so that's me I'm saying okay then. So you're telling the fans that this is what the expectation is. The expectation is 27 out of 27. I think that's fair to say, isn't it? That's what the internal target is, because that's what's needed if we have any chance of winning the league. So for me, now this might seem incredibly harsh, and it might be, I might be opening myself up to some criticism here, but if that's what the expectation of the team is, and the manager and the captain, then that will then become my expectation. And if they fall short of that, then it's a failure, isn't it? Is that fair? That's what the captain and the manager's telling us. So why wouldn't it be a failure from my part? Why would it be harsh? And to finish trophyless for this season would be a failure. I'm not interested in where we were. I'm not interested in, it dragged us into a title race. Well, I'm saying the players and the manager. I'm not interested in any of that. I've said I'm on record for saying that. Absolutely zero interest in that. Rangers isn't about coming back from the dead to then die again, if you will. Well, there you go. There's a safe quote. But it's about, for me, winning trophies, and we're nowhere near it at the moment. We were 2 games. We were within 2 games of going top of this league. Beat Motherwell and you beat Hearts. Okay, the Motherwell game happens. That good side. Wasn't exactly a disaster. We then bounced back against Hearts, so it's game on again. And then ever since, it's just been an absolute collapse. And then you've got the manager and the captain saying that, yeah, we're targeting 27 from 27. I doubt it, Stephen. I doubt it. Would love it to be the case. I think 27 out of 27 could win us the league, by the way. If the team and the manager want to win the league, then that is what's going to be required. But go back to it again. What does the evidence suggest? That I just don't think they've got it in them mentally. Ability-wise, again, me and you had this disagreement at the weekend, Stevie, after the game. I do think there is ability in this team. I really do. But it's the mentality. It is Absolutely, the mentality. And people are saying, would they want the manager and Tav to say? They weren't pressed on this. They weren't pressed on. Do you want to win the next 9 games, or are you going to win the next 9 games, or how's the next 9 games going to go? They said this themselves. This was information they gave up themselves. So if a journalist had asked, or Stevie had asked, or I had asked, how do you see the next 9 games going to go? Do you think you can win the next 9 games? And they both came out and said, yes, we can. Then fair enough. What else are they going to say? But this was freely given up. The manager said they made a promise to each other about the next 9 games. Tav then said they want to win the next 9 games. So this is coming from them. So yeah, I think talk is cheap. Talk is cheap. It's up to them to prove to us.
Kenny, they have went on a run before, and that was at a time where we thought it was absolutely unlikely they got results. The issue with that, I suppose, is we were so far behind, and then it was unexpected. We are kind of still in the hunt for it, so it just feels like to me like they could conceivably be in it after the weekend, and then get back to 3 or get back to whatever, and blow it. So I just have to. I feel very flat about the chances of going on any run, because I don't see this team producing if it's not able to beat what in theory was at the weekend a Celtic B team. And that worries me greatly.
Well, with good reason. I mean, anybody that thinks that we're coming on here to be negative for the sake of negativity isn't seeing the whole picture. I think we've played, what is it, 29 games. We've drawn 12 of them. It's more than a third of them. It's far too many points dropped, Stevie. There's mitigating circumstances at the start of the season where we drew 6 or first 8, but when they go and get stuff, this lot vanish. They just disappear, and it's the same every season. And it's at this particular juncture where, and this, I hope people understand that. It kind of pains us all to say this, that it's as predictable as night following day, that you get to February, March when the chips are really down, and every single team in the league is desperate for points. Everybody's got something to play for, whether it's avoiding relegation, the playoff, finishing top 6, playing for Europe, winning a league title. Everybody's got something to play for, and we don't get over the line in these games, and that's the sad reality of it for me. That and I said on Monday night that Danny Rule is perhaps, and every other manager over the last couple of years, 3-4 years, is going to be saying the same, that this is a wee bit unfair. We're still in this, but we have watched Rangers do this over and over again. And I think Sunday is one of those, I've said this a couple of times on here, it's like death by 1,000 cuts watching Rangers at times and over a season, and sooner or later you end up keeling over with 1,000th cut. And that felt like the final cut for me on Sunday. I was incredibly disappointed that we couldn't go over. I'm never going to go over the line here, and that we couldn't beat that bang average Celtic side. That I said it again on Monday. I think it's the worst Celtic side I've seen turn up at Ibrox since about 1994. Just on paper, I'm talking about. I just look at it and think, no, that's not a good Celtic side. But they're more than capable, and they've got our number. And in big games, they have our number. I mean, I've seen somebody on X or Twitter today say, you haven't beaten us in 90 minutes since 2024. Look at the trophies I've got, and wake up, smell the coffee. They have our number at this moment in time, Stevie, and it's up to the owners and the football staff to find a solution to this. And that's not me saying that we're out of this, because I don't believe for a minute that Hearts are a particularly good side. I don't believe Celtic are a good side. And it's still there for us. But my issue is Rangers, I just don't see us picking up the 24, 25 points that we're going to need to get, Stevie. But you just never know. I'll never throw a towel in until it's mathematically impossible. But just the way I'm feeling, my body language would be all wrong on a football pitch, put it that way, the way I'm feeling.
Yeah, I think it's impossible not to feel flat. We all went into these Celtic home games thinking we've got our biggest rivals twice at home, and we've come out of it with 1 point after being 2-0 up and getting beat by what is very much a Celtic B team. We can discuss to death what we need throughout the spine of the team. I think that when you look at it, John Souttar has played his way out of this Rangers team. Giga would start. The midfield, you've got 4 centres that are very much the exact same, and 2 wingers that aren't really producing in Skov Olsen and Jerry Gassama. We need players to hit form. We've got 2 strikers who are, well, we've not seen enough on the Deary in front of goal when he looked really promising, and he still does work rate wise. So who's the best partner for him? Is it Miovski? Is it Chermiti? And then you've got Miovski and Chermiti who are very inconsistent and don't do enough. How do you fix all these things is, I suppose, the biggest key. Chris, there isn't a golden ticket to fix this. As a support, we look at it sometimes and we say, you know, it used to be obvious when it was Walter's team or whatever, it would be like, right, time for Novo to get a chance, or time for Lafferty to come in, or whatever it was. Under Gerrard's team, you could say, right, time for Defoe to start this one, time for Itten to come in. Rangers don't have those luxuries. I kept saying that this would be something that needs 3 or 4 windows to build this squad to where it is, and I think Danny Rowe's done really well with it. But the problem that Danny Rowe's got is he got us back into it, and he probably unfairly brought the expectation level with him, and he's not been able to do much else since then. It's not a criticism, just a reflection of the results, and there's too many draws. This isn't a cry for Danny Rowe to be replaced either. So I suppose the biggest question is, with there being no golden ticket, how do you get this team prepped for a run of 9 games and to deliver what the manager and captain said they were going to deliver?
Kind of goes in the face of what you're saying, but you don't need a golden ticket to beat Livingston. You know what I mean? This is where it becomes mentality. The players, the players need to have a look at themselves. I think Danny needs to have a look at himself for all the praise he's had, and deservedly so. He done incredibly well up to this run. Teams that he'd beat previously, he's now dropping points to. What's changed? And the only thing that Rangers fans can see has changed is the situation. We were very much coming back from a dreadful start, one of the worst starts in a generation. Low level, low pressure games, no problem to this Rangers team. The higher the pressure, the more important the match. This Rangers team fold like a deck of cards. So then you look at these next 9 games are going to be high pressure games. So what does he do? He needs to manage, doesn't he? You need to get the best out of your players. You need to squeeze every single. It's a toothpaste analogy, isn't it? Squeeze every last bit out and leave the players. And that's what he needs to do. It's where good managers earn their crust. They raise the level of performance from their players, and they get something out of them that maybe is not actually there. He's clearly got a core of players that he trusts. Some of them, it's a bit weird because I thought Asgard was in that camp, but he seems to have lost trust in him, which is good. Bayrami, for example, seems to be earning his trust again. But I think that he's going to have to use his squad, and he's going to have to give opportunities to players that we've not really seen in the last couple of months. I'm talking about Ant-Man, for example. He definitely is someone. I'm talking about Miovski. It's easy to say that these players aren't good enough. I tend to agree in in the most part, but we simply need to use them just to see what happens. Miovski, I'm disappointed in Miovski. I thought we were getting somebody better than that, and it probably will be moved on. But ironically, the game at the weekend against Celtic was probably a Miovski game. It just took one chance. And he's probably, in fact, there's no probably about it, he is the best finisher at the club, but didn't get a sniff, didn't even come on for the penalties. Nadiri was done. I think he was done by full time, and they still managed to play the whole extra time, and I think that says a lot in terms of where does Rowe trust Miovski. Ant-Man, he can't really get ahead of Gassama. That says a lot at the moment. Gassama is just, he's bang out of form. He's another one that if an offer comes in the summer, you take that. You don't try and persevere with with Gassama for me. But I think the biggest thing as well, and maybe this is going to sound incredibly harsh, but please don't take it as harsh because I love the boy. The biggest thing that has hurt Rangers in the last 6 weeks is the absence of Conor Barron, and that says a lot. You know what I mean? That says a lot, and I can't wait for Conor Barron to come back into this team. I'd have him ahead of Raskin. So hopefully with him coming back, he can help because we need someone with his, never mind his ability, we need somebody with his mentality. We absolutely need somebody with his mentality. Never gives up, covers every blade of grass, doesn't look disinterested, head never goes down when things don't go his way. So he could be key to this run-in as well. Was quite surprised that he wasn't even in the squad at the weekend. Me and you discussed this, Stevie. So yeah, I'm looking forward to Barron coming back, but he needs to use the squad, and I totally understand where fans were at with us, and I know Kenny and Stevie, you will probably say this player's not really deserved it, and that player's not really deserved it, and I agree with you, but that's where we're at. We need to fling shit at the wall and see what sticks, really, because the core players that he's using right now have shown that they're mentally fragile, and it's all so predictable. It's long balls. It's the same kind of, I don't want to say rubbish style of play, but boring style of play. And then when players get chances, you don't know what Chermiti's going to turn. Well, actually, you do know what Chermiti's going to turn up. If we're playing St Mirren next, Chermiti's most likely not going to score. Whereas if we were playing Hearts or Celtic this weekend, I'd be very confident that the big man would be up for it and try to grab a goal or two. So these are the games, suppose I'm circling back round here, St Mirren. I've got absolutely no issue with Miovski coming in against St Mirren because these are the games I believe he can make an impact more than Chermiti could. So yeah, just needs to use his squad, Stevie, to answer the question. Sorry, it's long-winded.
Stevie, did you go to Rolls Presser after the game? If you watched it, you would have heard me. Did you ask it why this team couldn't beat a Celtic side who never had a shot on target the whole match? If not, you should have. I asked him how, and Chris was there, how he turns this Rangers side that he said had performed well into a Rangers side that can win a game after dominating. How does he do that? And he kind of waffled on about how he takes positives and he's not giving up. And you can watch it. You'll hear me. So yes, I was there, and yes, I did question him, and yes, I questioned James Tavernier as well. I asked Tav, you're only as good as your last game here, you know that, and the last game is that the fans have no confidence. Kenny, I asked Chris about 3 years ago how we change this and what the golden ticket is to kind of fix this. I don't really think we have one. Ant-Man, I think, currently has still got a hamstring problem, which is why he's not fitted in. Conor Barron's been left out the squad the last twice, which has surprised me greatly. Miovski, I don't rate. Gassama, unless he's on the left, is a waste of space. So how do you fix this? Like, who's the one that's going to hit form? Who's going to one that's going to lift things to be able to go on a run that we're going to see the best of other players and get the best on it. This is the last question on the kind of team stuff before we move on to talking about stadiums and everything else.
How do you fix it? I don't know, Stevie. We've discussed this on Four Lads at great length now over the last couple of weeks, Stevie, that we all feel there is, whether they like it or not, there's a psychological issue or a mental issue within the football club. Getting over the line is something we don't tend to do. I don't blame Danny Rule for that, the same way I didn't particularly blame Philip Clement for that, or Michael Beale, or whoever else, because it's a fundamental flaw in Rangers at this moment in time. And until we fix it, then I don't know what we do in that sense in the last 9 league games, because I would look at it and say, if I'm going to be constructive about what I feel, then looking on with a little bit of hindsight since the weekend, weirdly, we've looked very good at times and very bad at others when we play the 4-2-2-2. At times we've looked incredibly open, but we've looked quite dynamic up front at times. I thought on Saturday we were dominant without being creative. I thought defensively we were very sound. So getting the blend is very difficult, and I suppose that, as I said on Monday night, comes down to, if you're being honest, if there's a mental fragility about us, there's also an ability weakness there, because if we're very capable at times of scoring goals, we're also very, very culpable for losing bad goals as well. So for me, we need a ball carrier in the middle of the pitch. We need somebody that is a proper number 6. Dare I say it, a Barry Ferguson is exactly what you're kind of looking for here. They don't come cheap, and unfortunately, they don't come in this league campaign now. But it is that type of player that we need to go and spend a lot of money on in the summer. And I do think that, weird as it may sound, 1 or 2 players with real quality and leadership qualities about them can grab this team by the scruff of the neck, because there's a lot of talented young players in it. And again, I don't want to go repeating myself for the sake of it, but I just feel that when you look at that leadership group, Stevie, the how many medals you got? So they're not they're not winning leaders. They're not winners that are leaders that win things, so to speak. So that needs addressed as well. That can't happen again in the run-in here. But Chris is probably right. He's going to have to be very, very creative when it comes to throwing stuff at a wall and hoping that it sticks, because no matter what way I look at it, I just can't see us, for talk's sake, going to certain away grounds and winning. I'm not convinced that we're capable of that at all. So it's the only saving grace, as I say at this moment in time, is that there might be that little bit of what we tend to do now, is that as soon as we're kind of not going to do this, we start to play with a little bit of freedom again. And I think that's, get the shackles off and go for it. Just go for it. That'll be a tough game on Sunday against St Mirren, but they really do need to get 3 points, because if they don't, then we can forget anything at all.
Couple of things for me before we kind of move on. Thank you to L Trainer for his donation, or her donation. You don't have to do that, but we really appreciate it. Same story every season. To cite the squad being different players, when it comes to the crunch, we always blow it. The question has to be asked and answered. Right, okay. So for me, I think we've stumbled onto something that works at the back. So just play Giga and Fernandez, because John Souttar, when he came on, really looked like he had just been picked off the street and chucked in there, because he made everybody uncomfortable, and all of a sudden that became problematic. There's a lack of aggression from the middle of the park. 4 of them that are very samey. I've seen the criticism of Raskin, but when you watch the game, Raskin actually has an all right game. So does Chukwani. Delandi doesn't. I think he was unfairly booked within 2 minutes. And that kind of caused an issue. But I don't think there's any of them that can drive on. I don't think there's anyone that really can do something different. I don't think there's anyone that can carry the ball or dribble and score. Our wingers aren't dribbling past people and aren't scoring. Gassama on the right, you may as well just stop that. Just play him on the left with Mikey Moore and rotate both of them. Moore, for all that he's getting a lot of plaudits, hasn't really got much in the end game as well. And I think at Rangers, we have favourites. And if they're not, regardless of what they do, and I think Mikey Moore maybe comes into that because he's not producing a lot. He looks energetic, he looks quick, he looks lively. There's not really much end product there. On the right, Skov Olsen's been a complete disaster, really. Capable of quality, doesn't look like he can pass a man. Capable of quality only on reputation, really. Up front, hit and a miss. Something needs to kick in for that to become a run. I've dulled down my expectations. We go to St Mirren on Sunday, who it looks like Stephen Robinson's off to Aberdeen, who ironically we have next at Ibrox. So that's going to be an interesting dynamic and all that. And we just need to take one game at a time and hope that we see a reaction, hope that we get something from this team, hope that Danny can switch one or two things that kick it in. I don't think when I talk about a golden ticket, I don't think there's an obvious answer in there. Could Ant-Man bring something with Romans on the left if he's fit? Possibly, but who then plays on the right? Because that's a big problem. So there's a lot to think about and unpack. We will see how this goes. On to other topics. I'm going to go back to talk about the weekend, and I'm going to be the one that covers this. It's my show as host. I don't want to bring the boys into it, so I'm going to go into a couple of things. We, believe it or not, had complaints on Sunday from Celtic fans that were watching, saying that we didn't cover the sectarian singing from the weekend. I will not be held to account by anyone that sings about Walter Smith, Jimmy Bale, to an ABBA tribute song. I will not be held accountable to anyone that will back and sing loudly about the IRA or going home, British soldiers going home, and all that kind of shit that they sing about. And the reason I don't criticise our fans is because I'm firmly in the belief that both sides are the absolute same. Both songbooks are questionable, and both songbooks should be looked at. And if you want to go and complain about one, you complain about the other. And I'm sick of the Fox outrage and people getting pissed off about it and moaning that we don't cover it. The reason we don't cover it is because it's been done to death for 20, 30, 40 years. We're a rivalry. We don't like each other. And I'm quite frankly sick of it. So if you want to come on and preach to me about why I don't say about the Billy Boys and why I don't say about being up to our knees or whatever, have a look closer to home, because it's two sides that are the exact same. You want to go and chant about the IRA and Walter Smith and everything else, but cry when somebody sings something back to you, give it a rest. Give it a rest, because I'm not interested. Gentlemen, moving on, the damage to the Broomloan has been quite extensive. We know that. From what I gather from the football club, they are working with Celtic, who will cover the damage. The biggest issue Rangers got is the extent of the damage. There's 100 and 150 odd seats. Not only the seats, but you all know the metal bars that they sit on are broken and damaged. There's extensive damage also to the turnstiles and security doors which they kicked in, and also extensive damages to toilets, etc. The race is on to get that fixed in time for Aberdeen, but it's not something that the club feel that is likely to happen, that we won't be ready in time. It's just a lot of work to do. There'll be paint jobs. The biggest issue I've got is that, this has quite happened at exits. Where's the stewards? Where's the policing? It's just not really happened. Let's not be all offended about it. When Rangers go to Parkhead, they also do damage. We wrecked toilets and everything else years ago. This happens. It's a rivalry. But the extent of the damage, I think, to the Broomloan is stuff that we've never seen. We expect a few broken seats. You expect some bits of graffiti. Davey spoke really well about what that stand means to us and what it signifies in the 66 and the constant comments on that. It's not nice to see. Celtic will foot the bill with that. I don't think there's any fight back from them or anything like that. It is a rivalry, Chris. It is, come to expect it. But where do you draw the line amongst adults? And where do you say, like, enough is enough, guys? Get the point. We don't like you, you don't like them, but you've just wrecked a stand, to extreme levels. You're not getting back in, or next time you're in, it's this amount, or if you are getting in and that happens again, you're never getting back. What do we do here in this position?
See, to be honest, Steve, I don't think there's anything you can do. You're always going to have that element on both sides, and yeah, this is probably the worst we've ever seen in terms of damage caused. But you hit the nail on the head. First of all, please don't think I'm downplaying what the Celtic fans done. It was bang on order, and I had friends in that stand that were there at the weekend, and a colleague as well who was quite frankly disgusted at the behaviour, which was refreshing to hear. But that's just a level-headed Celtic fan, so I wouldn't tarnish them all with the same brush, because there is people that you can have in your life as a friend, a colleague, or whatever, and the ones I certainly know are level-headed and are not proud of what happened at the weekend, in terms of their fans' behaviour, and it's replicated by or myself. I don't know if you guys called it out, but the Rangers fans didn't exactly cover themselves in glory at full time. We need to rise above that. We don't need to go down to their level, which I believe we did. But anyway, that's by the by. As I say, I wasn't really going to get into that. But in terms of the damage caused, the vandalism, the vandalism is more kind of pisses me off more than the damage. The damage you can't expect, as you say, Steve. It happens. We do it over at Parkhead, or we've done it over on Parkhead. Yeah, the extent has went up a level this time, but it will get fixed, and it will have no cost to us. It's only going to cost our own club. The vandalism is how do you fix that? I don't know. It's ingrained in a generation of Celtic fans. I believe the older generation, they're not like that. I genuinely believe they're not like that. Guys of Davy Herd's generation, I don't think you would ever see any Celtic fan of Davy Herd's generation do anything like that, because they were as affected by that disaster as we were. So that's where you kind of the line is drawn there. The thing that gets me, that you stumbled upon, that I want to talk about, is not so much the behaviour of the Celtic fans, or perhaps the behaviour of the Rangers fans, or the singing of the Celtic fans, or the singing of the Rangers fans. It was Police Scotland have just they are so to blame for what happened at the weekend. They've taken no accountability. They've taken no responsibility. They passed the buck to minimum wage stewards, expecting them to stop Celtic fans writing on walls, damaging seats, and storming turnstiles and storming exits. That's the police's job. And they just sat back and they watched this happen. So much of what happened at the weekend could have been prevented, could have been stopped. They approved this allocation. Okay, I've not got a problem with that. It's the rules of the cup. Rangers offered the allocation as per the rules on the advice from Police Scotland that was allowed, and then the next day, you have one of the police officers say the allocation wasn't workable. So why did you approve it then? And then today you've got the chief constable saying that both clubs haven't come out and condemned the behaviour of the fans. It's all the fans' fault. You've got another police officer saying that we had a cordon up within 90 seconds. Now, that cordon should have been up before the first penalty was taken in preparation for a flashpoint. They're meant to have done risk assessments, and these risk assessments, I believe, should always be worst case scenario. What is the worst case scenario if this goes to penalties and Celtic win? Because that is worst case scenario, not for Rangers, but for flashpoints. The worst case scenario is there's going to be a spillover into the pitch. So how do you prevent that? You put a cordon round the pitch. You don't have to just put a cordon round the whole pitch. Put a cordon at Broomloan and put a cordon at the Copeland, where both ultras are, and that's a deterrent. If they get through, they get through. But the police have done their job. They did not do their job at all. They done no preparation or planning. They were late to react to the situations, and if they done their job, we wouldn't have seen the ugly scenes at the end, and we wouldn't be sitting here. Yeah, we would probably be sitting here talking about the damage. Again, I don't believe the extent of the damage would have been as bad if the police Scotland had done their job. I mean, can you imagine me and you were out in the street tonight and smashing windows and the police just walking by going, any problem, that's fine. That's not going to happen, you know what I mean? So they've taken no accountability, they've taken no responsibility. Rangers and Celtic need to come together here. Now, I know that's very unlikely, but they do, because both sets of fans are getting tarred with his brush. Stevie, we've got a colleague that was in that stand for Celtic that is just not like that at all, and he's been tarred with that brush, you know what I mean? Rangers and Celtic need to come together. They need to call out Police Scotland. They need to call out the shoddy operation. They need to call out the fact they've taken no accountability. They need to stand up for the fans, and then they condemn the behaviour of the fans, because it should be the Police Scotland first that get a kick in here. And they won't. They've actually passed the buck, because it's football fans. We're an easy target. They get treated like second-class citizens. We're not trusted to do anything. We can't behave. Which, when you actually think about it, there was nearly 52,000 people in that stand at the weekend, and what we're talking here. Let's just round it up to a high number. 1,000 were probably out of order. That's nothing. Yet the police are coming out with all these statements as if it was the whole stadium, all Rangers fans and all Celtic fans. So no, the police fell way below what was expected. And another thing I want to say about this as well, you get certain commentators who are not really interested in football, that look down their nose at football fans and sneer at football fans and go, it's a waste of taxpayers' money, the resource that the police put into these games. These games don't cost the taxpayer a penny. Rangers or Celtic will foot the bill to these. And it's Rangers and Celtic pay a lot of money. I believe, Stevie, you can maybe correct me if I'm wrong here, but the bill for this game for Police Scotland that Rangers will hand over to them is like maybe 300,000 for the game at the weekend. I know it's always kind of 250,000. So we pay for the service, and what we expect as a minimum is public safety being held up by people who are paid to make sure that there's harmony in public life. So we've all been let down by Police Scotland, and if they'd done their job, I believe the damage would be minimal, vandalism would be minimal, and there certainly wouldn't have been the ugly scenes at the end. And that's where it starts for me. Before I condemn any behaviour of any fan, it could have been prevented, it should have been prevented, and it wasn't prevented. And in actual fact, it was allowed to happen. Again, this is going to sound, and of course it's going to sound like this because I'm a Rangers fan. The only time the police actually get their finger out their arse to go into that pitch is when the Rangers fans started coming on. They allowed the Celtic fans on for a good, I don't know, half a minute to 45 seconds. Fair enough, they might have thought, right, a wee bit over exuberance, a wee bit over jubilant, and the fans might start to go back into the stand. But as time went on, more and more were going on the pitch, and they just sat back and watched it. Yet there's an actual picture or maybe a video where they're down the side of the Broomloan, just kind of standing like this, watching it. And it wasn't until the Rangers fans came on, they've kind of went, oh shit, we've got a problem here. Again, it's not good enough. It's not good enough. And they left it in the hands of minimum wage stewards. It is cowardly and it's pathetic. And I actually feel sorry for the stewards because I believe more of them were actually injured or assaulted than police themselves. They don't get paid for that shit, you know what I mean? And they get paid very little for that shit. So the police need to take responsibility and accountability. They haven't, they won't, and until they do, I'm quite happy for Rangers, and I don't care about Celtic, but I'm quite happy for Rangers and Celtic just to keep this in-house. We shouldn't bow down to a cowardly organisation who have done absolutely nothing but watch that trouble unfold. So, yeah, I've got very strong feelings about it, Stevie.
I will say this right here and now. I think Police Scotland are utterly incompetent. I thought that Emma Croft, her statement the other day was embarrassing. I think she's clearly out of her depth. I think the police reaction and the police policing of the game at the weekend was a joke. I think that all started. We were all well aware of 45 minutes beforehand that Celtic had stormed the gates. Celtic fans at Green Brigade had stormed the gates and were in the stadium. They let that happen. If you go back and watch Mikey Moore's goal at Parkhead, there is 3 rows of police officers in front of the Rangers fans. 3 rows. On Sunday, there was not 1 row of police officers in front of that Broomloan end, especially in the penalties. Now, you watch 40 minutes into any game at Hampden, a big, massive row of stewards and police come out in front of both ends in preparation to make sure nothing happens. At Ibrox, they sat with their fingers up their arse. And let's be honest, those scenes that we've seen in the corner where there's people spitting over and throwing things and everything else from the Celtic end, we've seen this, onto disabled supporters. There's police in the middle of that watching and doing absolutely nothing, refusing to go into the crowd. There was various, when she talks about Emma Croft, about police being there and ready, there was various police sitting in vans all around the stadium at action points when this was going on inside the ground. As soon as it came to penalties and the potential for anything to happen, the police should have been actioned. And that goes down to the match commander and massively miles out their depth. Police Scotland can sit and mark their own scorecard and say, we done it wonderfully well, but the incompetence of Police Scotland shone through on Sunday. Just a very poorly organised event, and the reaction and the behaviour of the officers was totally inadequate. I'm going to read, Kenny, the FAB Advisory Board statement. It says, a joint statement from Rangers Fan Advisory Board and Rangers Supporters Association. The Rangers Fan Advisory Board and the Rangers Supporters Association are deeply concerned with the handling of Sunday's Old Firm game by Police Scotland, which we consider to have been wholly inadequate, and when created unnecessary risk for our fans, it should have been avoided. We're appalled that visiting supporters were allowed to storm the turnstiles before the match, not for the first time, then later to invade the pitch in reaction to events on it with little or no attempt made to stop it, also not for the first time. Our fans were also placed in danger before and after the match by chronic lack of segregation on Helen Street. This failure as basic matchday planning contributed to heightening tensions around the stadium as opposition supporters were allowed to walk and gather freely in the area where Rangers fans had been asked to park. Police Scotland Greater Glasgow Chief Superintendent Emma Croft is marking her own homework when she describes her satisfaction with the matchday operation. More disturbing was the abhorrent mockery yet again of the Ibrox disaster, with the memory of her 66 desecrated by vile graffiti. The perpetrators emboldened to vandalise our stadium and its infrastructure with impunity. The failure of Police Scotland to act on Sunday and the failure of Scotland's civic society to call out this repeated and shameful behaviour from across our game is a disgrace. It would not happen in Liverpool or Manchester. Kenny, you remember I brought that up on Monday. Collectively, we call on Rangers to take robust, decisive and public action in defence of our club. The handling of this fixture, from ticketing and allocation decision to policing arrangements, fell far below an acceptable standard and breaching of an expected duty of care. Our support cannot be expected to tolerate repeated failures that compromise safety and dignity. We will never apologise for protecting the well-being of Rangers fans and will continue to work with the club, ensuring there can be no repeat of the events we witnessed in the build-up and aftermath of Sunday's fixture. so much to unpack. I want to make a quick point. Last week in the league game, there was somebody in the Celtic end with a phone holding up 66, and he was on papers and the front of papers and everything else. Why is it so silent from Sunday? That's what I would like to know. Why is there a selective reporting? Why isn't people calling out what went on there? The graffiti, everything that was said, everything about 66 stuff and everything else. Like it said, it wouldn't happen in Liverpool and Manchester. I think Manchester United collectively apologised when there was stuff done to Liverpool and things like that for one fan, and we sit in silence. There's a lot to unpack on that Fab statement, Kenny, but they also unimpressed with the police. They mentioned Emma Croft. I thought she was massively out of date. I thought she looked incompetent, just like the Police Scotland policing of that event on Sunday. Where do you stand with all this? Chris and I have had obviously quite a passionate say on it.
I had a lot to say on Monday night about it, Stevie, and I had to contain myself. I had to stop because I found myself getting wound up by it. Since Monday, I have sat there and I've looked and thought about it, and all I see everywhere is whataboutery. Aye, but what about? And it's tit for tat. It's what football fans do, right? So I look at the policing, and I look at the basic failings. And one of the things that one of the policemen, I think it was Kate Stevens, that I seen today on getting questioned by some MP. And she turned around and she said something about, she was asked about why there wasn't a cordon. And she basically complained about the clubs complaining about the cost of policing these games. Now that opens the question right away to me. Well, what are you doing then exactly? If you're turning around and saying that you need more police officers to actually control and police the situation, then you should be turning around and saying to the whatever club, Rangers in this instance, we can't have 7,500 of them there. It actually opens a question. So there's so much contradictions in what Police Scotland have said since Sunday, and I couldn't agree any more with the RSA and FAB, because at the end of the day, they're marking their own homework. You can't do that. Actually, and I said it on Monday, look within yourselves to see where you went wrong, instead of turning around and putting all the onus on football clubs who are paying you a fortune to police the game. Now, when I was a kid, they would have just taken out a bat and they started wielding it at folk the minute somebody came onto a football pitch. That's what they would do. Now, times have changed, but it's not changed that much, Stevie. You are sitting in a situation here with Rangers and Celtic, and in case it's escaped Police Scotland's attention over the last 100 and odd years, this is one of the biggest rivalries in world football. It's one of the biggest derbies in world football. You are sitting there in a penalty shootout, in a cup tie, in one of the biggest derbies in the world. And then you actually allow the away support, or an element of them, to come onto the pitch. Now, if you don't think that's a volatile situation and you stand by and watch it, then hell mend you, because for goodness sake, grasp the reality of the situation that you find yourselves in. Now, the issue I have is that is over 2 hours after there was Celtic supporters buses travelling through Rangers supporters, the Helen Street fiascos, the fact that they had broken in via the disability door, they had smashed turnstiles, they were openly vandalising the stadium. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not sitting here putting all the onus or all the blame on Celtic supporters here for what happened after the game, because both sets of supporters come on. I genuinely do blame Police Scotland for that arising. they're there to police, and they didn't do it. They're there to control a crowd of 50-odd thousand people, and if you're not capable of doing it, there is absolutely no way that they can agree to turn around and allow 7,500 people of an away support into that stadium. That's where I have an issue, that they are just contradicting themselves. They are covering their own arses is what they're doing for their own failings. And it's quite clear, if you're a reasonable Rangers, Celtic, or any other football fan in this country, actually take a look at some of the stuff that was going on through the game, that was going on before the game, and realise that Police Scotland are incredibly out of their depth and almost proven themselves to be incapable of managing a massive away support. They don't know what they're doing. And that is the biggest concern for me, because hold on a minute, you can have 25 or 23,000, whatever it is, of each support at Hampden. How can you police that, but you can't police this? It mystifies me. It absolutely mystifies me. And I said it on Monday again, Stevie, that the SFA are notable in their lack of responsibility for this, for forcing the issue. They were the ones that forced this on Rangers. And make no mistake, they forced it, because they were the ones that threatened us with, we'll give them more. So you can't have it. These people are actually quite prepared to do this. That's what worries me. And Rangers are going to take some of the flack for this, and rightly so. I get it. However, that would be my concern. And this is where I'll just jump in and turn around and say to you that I'm never going to sit on here and criticise Rangers fans. Never. There's every other club in the country. Support will sit there and stick the boot into us constantly. The media will stick the boot into us constantly. We've got our own haters, and we've got more than enough of them without us, turning on our own. And I don't like that. Is there an element in our support that I would like to see behave properly? Of course. But we're no different from any other support in that sense. We have an element. That's a fact. Nobody's disputing that. They shouldn't have come onto that pitch. Nobody's disputing that. However, for me, there is mitigating circumstances, and whether people like it or not, the institutions in this country, the authorities in this country, being Police Scotland, the SFA, and the media, and their reaction to this, where it seems to be big bad Rangers, can go all take a fuck to themselves with this. I don't like it. I actually don't like it, because I am sick and tired of when I see these things unfold, being tarnished with a brush that I don't feel was very fair. It's a tin pot little country that doesn't like Rangers, Stevie, and bring on Jim Gillespie, and let's hope he can do a job for us in terms of standing up for this football club, because as I say, I think Police Scotland coming out with some of the nonsense they have, I can understand why our American owners have sat and said nothing at the moment, because they're probably fully aware that Police Scotland are heavily culpable in what happened. And if I'm Rangers and I'm sitting there saying, I've just paid 300,000 quid for this, and you did nothing, and we're to blame, no chance. So that's probably why, if anything, both clubs are saying nothing.
Chris, final question. What would you like to see Rangers do next? What do you want Rangers' reaction to be? What should they do with the away support? Should there be a blanket approach that if any fans decide to do damage to our stadium or chant about the 66 or write graffiti or whatever about them, that there should be a blanket ban for the next game? Where do we start getting tough? Where do we start reacting to this, and what should be our next move?
That's a tough one, because a lot of this is going to be taken out of Rangers' hands. The allocation, effectively, we're already been told, we're already been prepped that it's going to be cut reduced or completely taken away entirely. That's just for the Old Firm games, but in terms of other teams, because it happens to other teams, I don't really know the approach. I'm not really sure that we'll have the same amount of help as Liverpool have with you know, national and local government intervening in issues with tragedy chanting. Please don't think I'm playing this down. Unfortunately, it's something that is on the rise throughout the UK. When these things happen, the only real way to combat it is education. So, you know, it's something maybe Rangers could put out some sort of, you know, piece about the history and in terms of what actually happened in that day, and then hopefully the fans of other teams will see it. Because as I said, it didn't just affect Rangers fans that day; it affected Celtic fans, and then it's difficult for me to tell, obviously, because I wasn't born and I don't have anybody who was personally affected by it. But it didn't just affect Rangers and Celtic fans; it affected the whole of the Scottish society. It affected many fans of many clubs because they obviously knew people that were there. So it did affect the whole of Scotland. And you see, as I say, you see a certain generation who lived it. Maybe not so much were there, but who lived it, and they're very, very respectful towards it because it still haunts them to this day. And I'm talking about Celtic fans, and then as the generation after generation to the younger generation, it's now used as a stick to beat us with. Not a stick to beat us with. I don't think that's a great turn of phrase. Actually, it's quite clumsy, but it's used as something to goad us, and it's it beggars belief. So, is that something we could possibly do in terms of, you know, trying to educate the whole of Scotland again on the matter? I don't know. It may be a silly shout, but it's something. It did affect the whole of Scotland, and now it just seems to be, that's a Rangers tragedy, so let's laugh at it, which is absolutely fucking disgusting. We don't seem to be getting any government intervention. Fans are having to police that again, back to the police in terms of anybody who mentions it, does it, or whatever. Fans are having to highlight that they've got it in their phones, or singing about it, or saying about it, and that's when police are reacting when it goes viral on social media. Again, police should be able to do that. So I'm not really sure what the answer is to that. And in terms of what we should do with opposition fans, as I say, I think most of it's going to be taken out of our hands. I think the SFA will get involved. And the police, you'll see the SFA and the police coming together, and I genuinely think it's going to be an outright ban to begin with, and then they'll start working their way back up to the smaller allocation. But Rangers need to be tough and just say, look, you know, that allocation of Celtic fans in the corner with a wee bit in the Broomloan or whatever, that's all you're ever going to get now. And likewise at Parkhead, we'll get the same. And it's a shame. It's a shame because it's not a shame for the Celtic perspective, but I'm looking at it from a Rangers fans perspective. You have a lot of Rangers fans who were very much in favour of giving them the old allocation because it means in turn they get the old allocation at Parkhead, and it's a better day out. And I totally get that. I totally understand that, and it does create a better atmosphere. I think Martin O'Neill was in TalkSport saying that that's the loudest he'd ever heard a football ground out with going to Anfield with Celtic. So it does bring a lot having a full allocation at these stands, and it does the colour, the passion, the noise, the atmosphere. But I think those days are done now, guys. I don't think we'll see. I don't think we'll ever see a Rangers and Celtic game where that will be the allocation. I think you'll have the Hampden game is where it'll be the 50-50 split is what you'll get. It's the kind of closest to it. So yeah. Finally and ultimately, Stevie, to answer your point, I can't really answer your point what Rangers should do about allocations because I think that'll get taken out of their hand. But obviously, I said about possibly education with the Ibrox disaster, but Rangers need to hold the clubs responsible for the behaviour for their fans when it comes to the Ibrox disaster. It's as simple as that. They have to ensure, well, they can't ensure, but they have to fight to make sure that these clubs are dealing with their supporters who are basically spewing this vile bullshit. Make sure that that they get lifetime bans from their own stadiums, and that I think that's the way forward. But again, whether that's possible or not, I don't know.
Final point from me on the events, both sides, football in general. See if you're going to wear balaclavas and go faces hidden and all that kind of stuff, then I'd maybe think about cutting it out. And I'm a fan of ultras and what they bring in terms of atmosphere and stuff like that. But this, kids on parks and all that kind of stuff, because more or less everybody on that pitch that I saw was all young kids. I think we need to sort that culture straight away and need to fix that. If I walk down the street covering my face, shouting and screaming and wearing a balaclava and face coverings, I'm going to get arrested. I don't see why it's any different. And I don't see why Police Scotland sit back and do nothing about this week upon week. Let's not forget the Green Brigade are banned from Celtic Park and all away grounds and stormed our ground and were allowed to stay in there. I don't understand why that was allowed to happen. Our own fan base has its element that they need to look at as well. This isn't a blame at everybody, but there is stuff that needs to be looked at. If you're covering your face at a football game, why are you there? That's a big question for me. Round up the scores before we go. Full time, Leverkusen 1, Arsenal 1, Bodo Glimt Leeds Sporting 1-0, Paris Saint-Germain 1, Chelsea 1, Real Madrid are beating Man City by 2-0 in the Champions League, which we obviously will win next season once we win these 9 games, 3-0 in every game, and win the league. There's a bit of positivity for you, Kenny. Thank you as normal, mate.
No, thank you. The only thing I would add on what we've just said there, right, very quickly, is that, see if you're talking about the Ibrox disaster, 2 things I would say. I totally agree with Chris in terms of maybe a little bit of education on it. But Celtic as a football club do need to say something about, show a little bit of a moral compass, because they do know how disgusting that is. As a football club, they must do. So faults on all sides here, Stevie. I'm not suggesting there isn't, but for me, they have to do more about that. They have to educate their own fans in that way. But you are dealing with a tribal situation there, where when one does it, the other does it, and it just spirals, and that's the issue. But thanks for having me on. I enjoyed this chat. Actually, it was a good debate, a good talk, good talk.
Chris, thank you, mate, as ever. Much appreciated. Not an easy podcast, because we have to give opinions. We have to try and be balanced. I suppose there's no point in coming on here and blaming one side. There's no point in coming here and trying to virtue signal and say, we're this, we're that. It has to be open and honest. I feel that we have tried to do that. Yeah. Up to your knees in Fenian blood, surrender or you die. There's your root cause right there. When you are standing chanting about the IRA, when you're standing chanting about Walter Smith and Jimmy Bell being dead, when you're standing chanting about everything else, away and take your Fox offended pish elsewhere. Your fans are just as bad. Give it a fucking rest, because I won't be lectured by anyone that fan base will openly subscribe to a terrorist organisation like the IRA. So fuck off. Chris, as I said, thank you very much, mate.
Yeah, it's these conversations are always difficult, because they can be, slanted in such a way that, we're having a go at Rangers fans or having a go at the club. I don't think we've done that at all tonight. I think we were balanced. I think we acknowledge there's issues on our side, and we acknowledge there's issues on the Celtic side. But I think what we've done really was we got to the root cause of the problem tonight and discussed the things that I believe need to be discussed. If policing is better, then the behaviour will get better. There'll be less instances, and there should be less controversy. But until that point, you're always going to have issues when the police don't give a fuck, but they take the large amount of money they get from the club. But yeah, look, let's go back to the football. Right, weekend wasn't good enough. The last 2 weekends weren't good enough. Let's just go to this weekend against St Mirren, get a win, and hopefully that's the catalyst for what needs to be an almost perfect run of games in order to hopefully drag us back into contention for this title. And yeah, that's all that matters, isn't it, Stevie? At the end of the day, that's all that matters. Seen a comment, Stevie. I've got a job for you. A comment from a subscriber. They want a GIF of Kenny vaping. So if you can try and fish that out and GIF that up, I would like that as well, Stephen.
That's for your chat, that one, Chris. There's a few of them on there who'll do that for us.
Yeah, thank you everybody that has watched. We'll find that GIF. We always will. Thanks for everybody that has watched and commented. We won't hide from trying to talk about the biggest issues. The biggest issue being Rangers on the pitch. The biggest issue being what happens surrounding our football club. We will always try and give our honest opinions, as difficult as it might be. And it's never easy because all these conversations are extremely difficult. Excuse me, but I won't be lectured by anybody coming on and telling me about our support and how it all starts and how we're all offended. That won't be happening. This is a Rangers podcast. So we have all made pinky promises to each other as a squad and as a manager that we're going to win our 9 games. So I'm going to take that optimism with my little pinky and go forward to what will be the start of 9 fantastic victories, starting with St Mirren on Sunday. We'll be back in the coming days to go over more of the latest Rangers news. We'll cover Danny Rule's press conference at the weekend. We'll find out what's happening with the squad, and we will be back. Win, lose, or most likely draw, no matter what. Huge thanks to our sponsors, Rhino Express, Clydeview Fire Protection and Joinery, Athol Industrial Solutions, CSD Air Conditioning, and our very own Candid. Our new Sunday sponsors, RYDC, Colin Stewart and all the guys over there. We will got tongue-tied there. We have signed up to them free of charge, and we will be promoting the RYDC, which we have raised a lot of money for as 4 lads. I think we've raised almost 15,000. A lot of that was pre-COVID. Will there be a RYDC live show one day where all profits go to them and Chris and Kenny and I have a wander? Then yeah. Excuse me 1 second, just to get rid of that person out of the comments. Yes, there we go. Goodbye. Go and get a wash. One day we will do that, most certainly. So, yeah, thank you for everybody. We'll be back Sunday, Rangers, to win the first of 9 games because we've been promised, and why shouldn't we all hold on to that? Thank you, boys and girls, for joining us in the comments. Kenny and Chris, it's been a pleasure as always. A bit of an extended show. Apologise for all the gibbering on and me taking about an hour and a half to close the show.
I can't believe you admitted you had a small pinky live on air, mate. That's brilliant.
Lots of people would tell you otherwise. Good night, folks. Take care. Bye for now.
Four Lads podcast is sponsored by Rhino Express, Clydeview Joinery, Athol Industrial Solutions Limited, and CSD Air Conditioning, in partnership with Black Rooster and Art of Gold. Thank you for listening to or watching the podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show.